All right, hello and welcome. We are Queens of the Reads. I'm Emily, as Silvia stated previously, and this is Silvia. Welcome to our Q&A with author Maureen Johnson, writer of Truly Devious, which we're currently reading. We are currently on The Vanishing Stair, the third book in the series. I'm Emely Paola, a 26-year-old Salvadorian American and co-host to Queens of the Reads. I love to read a lot of mysteries and thrillers along with fantasy, sci-fi, and a little bit of romance in there. And you can actually find me at Paola Loves Books Texas on Instagram.
Okay, and I'm Silvia. I'm the other half of Queens of the Reads. I'm a 27-year-old Chicana who loves to read classics, romance, and feminist or other nonfiction works. So I'm currently a library employee. So shout out to Harris County Public Library. And you can find me as at Silvia and Books on Instagram.
So a little bit about us. Queens of the Reads actually started back in 2016. It was just the two of us in college. We first started reading the Chronicles of Narnia throughout our classes. So it took us, I think, a little bit more than a year to finish all 7 books because there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to read the Percy Jackson series back in 2019. We even got to attend one of his tours for his Trials of Apollo series. So that was kind of like the last one we did in person. And then we went fully virtual once the pandemic hit. This was back in like 2020. And then we kind of developed from there, started a little bit more.
Yeah, and so we did virtual for all of 2021, and then this year we decided to do 2 book clubs. So our first section is 2.0. It's a hybrid group that takes place in 2-month intervals. We discuss via Instagram chat, and towards the end we meet in person around Houston, Texas, where we both live.
And our second section is actually this one, which is our virtual section. We have, this year we're doing a year of trilogies, so we're reading 4 different trilogies, 1 book a month, with an Instagram chat every month, and then 1 virtual meeting at the end of the month
on Microsoft Teams. And then we're obviously doing Maureen Johnson's Truly Devious, which brings us to an intro of Maureen. We got this off of your website. So,
that's correct.
So she's the #1 New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of several YA novels, including 13 Little Blue Envelopes, Sweet Scarlett, The Name of the Star, and Truly Devious. She has also done collaborative works such as Let It Snow with John Green and Lauren Myracle, which is now on Netflix, and several works in the Shadowhunter universe with Cassandra Clare. Her work has appeared in publications such as the New York Times, Buzzfeed, and The Guardian, and she has also served as a scriptwriter for EA Games. She has an MFA in writing from Columbia University and lives in New York City, but I don't know if you still live in New York City.
I live in New York City.
Okay. Oh yeah. I'm terrible with time. I have her do all of the every time we're setting up a meeting, we're like, you do that and I'll set up the meeting and you tell us what time it is.
Nope, right. I live in New York City, which is why I have a plumber coming at like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. So
I have never been to New York City.
No, but we do have some members kind of close by.
Yeah.
I believe Sasha, you're like around New Jersey, right?
Yes.
So we do have a few members. I think Katie too, also New Jersey.
New Jersey, yes. All right.
Around the area.
I'm gonna go ahead and introduce
them. Speaking of our members, we actually have quite a few of them meeting with us today. But for this particular book club, we have a few. So shout out to them. We have Amy at _Café con Libros _. We have Genesis at jen.reads. We have Katie at bibliophile136. We have Molly at parflf.
Hi.
We have Sasha at Bookstreamed. Timothy at Corner Book Nook. Christine at Christine.Kelly. Jason at Jason Cruz. Bianca at Literary Critter. Ruth at Ruthie _V Montiel. And Stephanie at Stephanie _Franco25. So thank you for joining us. We have the majority of them here today, actually.
Yeah, I think if Genesis made it, she was going to be road tripping for her friend's birthday. So kudos to her for wanting to listen to us on a road trip. But all right, let's start. So we have a lot of questions for you, Maureen. We're going to start with a Q&A from us two, and then we'll have our book club peeps ask their questions. And we also had some questions that I posted on my story, and then you reshared. So we actually got a couple of people that had questions of their own. But all right.
All right, so our first question is actually something that I would like to know is how did you find out you wanted to be a writer?
Well, I remember it was all I really wanted to do as a little kid. I think it's a behavior more than anything else. It's not like a solid career track. I don't think as a kid you're like, that seems legit. That seems like I know that people are going to want to hear that you're going to be a writer. It's just something you kind of are. And the behavior is separate from a profession. So if you have the behavior and that is your part of your identity, then you're like, well, I got to figure out how to make this work because this is clearly just what I am. So now I got to figure out how that happens. And when I became a writer, there was certainly a lot less information about how people became writers. So it was genuinely mysterious to me, like how anybody ever went from just being at home doing something to book. It was like floating on a cloud or something. It seemed impossible. I'm like, maybe you just jump high enough and then you land on a cloud. I just kind of I just wrote all the time. I studied it. I pursued it. I overturned every single rock, and then, and now I get to do it.
I'm really glad because I'm a huge fan of your books.
Thank you.
I've been talking to Silvia about it because I remember reading an arc of Truly Devious. I got it from Epic Reads. I think I won a giveaway or did a survey or something, and I got it. And I just remember reading it in a week or so or a few days, and getting to the end of it, and I was like, this cannot be the ending of this book.
Yeah, and I have comments about the end too, so I can really get there.
I did patiently wait for the sequel.
Those last 3 words were not my idea.
They were very I feel like they were definitely made me want the sequel as soon as possible. I was like, I need to know why.
I fought to have them. I was like, no, but my editor was like, we should put that in there.
They knew that would make everyone want to pick up the sequel. Excuse me, what is this?
Yeah, but it was a very dangerous cliffhanger because I was listening to the audiobook and that's like, I have to remember that I'm driving when this happens. And I'm like, wait, that's it? What do you mean? I can't pull over and try to wait for my library to give me the second book. So that was, and it was a horrible cliffhanger in the sense that oh my God. But it was a good cliffhanger and, it did what it had to do.
So this is a little bit more in writing. Is there anything you've learned throughout your years of writing that you wish you knew when you first started?
That feeling that you don't know what you're doing is natural and is actually useful and part of it. That you're really bad at it, that what you've written is garbage, that you don't know what you're doing. I never really thought I didn't know what I was doing, but on an individual daily level, I always feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And that is part of it. That's actually a really important part of it because writing is this weird long-term thing that it's not like you finish a book in a day and you write things over and over so much that what you are creating on a day-to-day level isn't the thing. So it's natural that you're like, what am I even doing? What am I making? I'm just kind of doing things. And it can feel very disorienting until you realize that it's actually part of the process and super healthy and just a good sign that you're doing the right things. If you feel like you have no idea what you're doing is actually perfect. That's good. So don't panic and feel like everyone else knows more than you do. Because they don't. That's all smoke and mirrors. Every single writer I know, and I know a lot of them, are like, well, this is the one, this is the time, it's finally happened. This is the one that kills me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just the worst. And you're like, oh, okay, so Everything's good then.
I've loved to write since I was like in middle school. So for me, like this is something that I actually love to like ask authors when I can. Because I know from like experience too, where it's like I'll write something and I'm like, wow, this is the best thing I've ever written. And then like the next day I look at it again and I reread it and I'm like, never mind, this is the worst thing I've ever written. And I'm like, start over, all over again.
Yeah, like I've always known I'm a good writer in the sense of like school, I can write a great essay, but when it comes to being creative, that's when you're like, oh, is it a good piece of writing because I'm so emotionally attached to it, or is it a good piece of writing? And then I think even when like I'm trying to like rate books, the scholar in me is trying to look at it from an academic point of view, like was the writing actually good, like the transitions, like all the technical stuff. And then I'm like, well, what about how it made you feel? Like, is your rating based on how you feel or how good the actual words look? And so I think that's always really hard for me too, just juggling wanting to do creative writing and wanting to do academic writing and like knowing what that even implies, like what is good.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually about Truly Devious, but what has your favorite part about writing Truly Devious been?
Well, I wrote quite a number of books before I got to Truly Devious. And when I got there, I have a lifelong love of mysteries. Those were the first things I read when I was a kid. I was 100% obsessed. It was like, truly, it was my everything. All my favorite books were mystery books. And for some reason, I never wrote one. And I wasn't really sure why, except that I guess it was because I wanted to, and therefore I avoided it. I can't really explain it more than that. But I finally went to an editor and said, I want to do a mystery. And the trouble was that they kind of wanted me to do a couple of books. And so I wanted to write a pure mystery, which should end in, really a mystery should end in one. So I had to set myself a challenge of trying to figure out how to make one cohesive mystery story, or really two, be legitimately solved over 3 books. So I had to figure out a big 3-story or the 3-book overarch. And then I had to build a couple walls in between and go, you'll get enough of the information here. And then you'll get some more of the information here. So I had to build this, and then I had to build these. So it was a lot of, but what I really love is making the crimes. I love it. Like I start with I have so many charts and I have so many like ways of doing things, because I believe that you should really start with the why, not the who. So I have and I build these little mechanics, and I really try to build little tiny machines in each one of these books. They're all very carefully tuned. So there's no chance in there. I mean, I may make a mistake and have to clear it up in a draft, but I have built that little machine at the center of that thing where I'm like, look, I spent a lot of time building my little imaginary murder machine, and it's going to run. It's going to run correctly. I had a team of engineers helping me. I married into a family of engineers and submarine commanders and buildings and chemical people. And I'm like, come on. I'm building let me explain my murder machine. And so I had a lot of, I like it.
So on the subject of murder mysteries, what kind of research do you do for that kind of work? I mean, what does your Google search history look like?
Well, you've all read Truly Devious, and you're done.
Yes.
So I can explain that Hayes dies I wanted to do a play on the classic locked room mystery. A body is found inside of a room. The room is locked. And also the idea that there's an old kind of murder mystery puzzle that's like a guy is found alone in a room with a block of ice, and he's been stabbed and there's no murder weapon. What was the murder weapon? It was an icicle. Or he's found hanging, but there's no chair or anything. What was and it's always a block of ice. It's always a block of ice. And so I wanted to do a play on that. It's always a block of ice. So then I was like, okay, so there's dry ice. So then I had to do a lot of science work about, because I was like, can dry ice kill you? Is there a way of doing that? Which meant that I had to go up to the Columbia University Library to read a whole bunch of journals of forensic science and read about people that have died, usually in refrigerators. One guy fell into a vat, like a wine vat, but somehow it was filled with something. Like, there was a whole bunch of weird, like, people that fell into things. So there was a lot of reading of science. And then, as it happens, my father-in-law was a submarine commander. And that's a thing, like, air exchange and things when you live in when you travel under the sea in a little cigar, like things that can build up in the air. So, yeah, I am not a science person. So I can follow along. Like, I did my basics, but then I went out and I was like, okay, let me construct this thing correctly. So I built Ellingham. Then I'm going to reveal myself as a major nerd. I'm going to show you something. I just have to reach over here and grab it because it's on my wall. Hold on, let me get it down. So these are drawings that I'm taking down right now. I'm sure you can still hear me because I have earbuds in. I'm an obsessive map maker on all of these books. And I spend a lot of time producing incredibly terrible but accurate drawings because I build all my architecture for these books. So sometimes the buildings themselves might be murder weapons or clues or whatever. So Nine Liars, which is coming out, is an English manor house murder mystery, which meant that I had to design. I spent weeks, like a week at least, drawing this, and it looks like a child did it, but it's accurate. The buildings, the grounds, this is embarrassing. Actual artists have to get this and turn them into real maps. But that beautiful map of Ellingham Academy in the front of the book is based on drawings I did because I had to pace everything out and measure it and like figure out tunnel systems. And I spend a lot of time thinking about these things. So the layouts are very important to me. Maps are very important to me. So I bought historical maps of Vermont off of eBay, like from the 1930s. So I actually knew where all of those roads were. And so it's a lot. I mean, I go in deep into the weeds. I go to my librarian. I'm digging around on eBay for maps and all kinds of garbage. My MFA is actually in nonfiction. So my undergrad is in rhetoric. So I always had to have my backup. I always had to have like, here's my documentation and here's my measurements. So everything has been measured, counted, checked. I'll have some backup scientists. I'll have done, it's a surprising amount of work for a fiction. I was amazed when I saw that map of Ellingham Academy when it was first drawn. Because if you saw the nonsense I gave to them, I mean, I don't understand how they transferred my nonsense into that map. But yeah, that's some of the work I do.
Well, your drawings are probably a whole lot better than I would be able to. I mean, I don't know if you can. I think Emily is like freaking out as you're telling her all this like hard work and research you're doing. She's like, oh, now I gotta make maps. I can't even read a map, so I'm just not even gonna.
I love maps, and I love. I also a lot of the Nine Liars stuff because it's based on like the grounds of an estate. Then I had to learn about landscape architecture, and I don't know how plants work, but I had to find out. So the attitude I always had as like my training was in rhetoric and professional writing. Nonfiction was you're going to have to write about stuff that you don't know. So your job is to go in and find out. So if your job is to write a fire extinguisher manual, one of the actual examples I remember being given is like you have to go in and take apart the fire extinguisher. Like your job is to go in and like take tools and take that thing apart until you understand what it is that you're writing about. And some of that has stayed in that I'm like, look, yes, it's a fictional building, but I know every corner of it.
And I would think that helps, right? Because once we start to like read the books, there's a lot of like detail about every room, especially like the great house. There's detail about like the wallpaper and the walls and like the paintings or like the statues, and I find that very fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's there for a reason, and sometimes it's there just to kind of make you think it's there for a reason. That's the great thing about mysteries, is the detail there because it's a clue, or is it there to make you think it's a clue, or is it there just because you like wallpaper?
Yeah, and then considering that Ellingham liked playing games, you're kind of wondering how much of it was there because of him or how much of it is part of the mystery. So that is definitely a lot of planning. So again, on the subject of true crime though, so do you listen or do you watch true crime? Are you into any podcasts or anything that you could recommend to us to listen to?
I have a podcast sickness. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like, I have a very strong rotation of podcasts. I do listen to true crime. The ones I like the best are ones that have actually solved, like Your Own Backyard, which helped break open the Kristen Smart case. There was one by Australian media called Teacher's Pet, which actually broke open a old cold case and also accidentally broke open a well, not to put too fine a point on, a ring of predators that operated within a series of schools in Australia and I think the 70s that they were not even looking for. They just accidentally did that. I love a lot of comedy. I love a lot of history. I love a lot of cooking. I have a pretty heavy rotation of podcasts. Certainly every day of the week, I'm like, oh, it's Monday morning. What have I got? Like, yeah.
And are those podcasts kind of rotating based on your mood, or is it part of a research?
It's usually based on things I just like to listen to. So sometimes I'll get into a new one. I do listen to like a lot of the kind of standards, the My Favorite Murders, things like that. But also a lot of comedy and history and cooking. Also cooking, which does not seem like it would make scintillating listening, but it turns out I can listen to that all day.
So now I'm curious about the cooking ones. Does it tell you like what you're supposed to do, like step by step, or is it just like talking about food in general?
The one I like the best is called The Kitchen Cabinet. It's on the BBC, and it's a panel show of chefs where people write in questions, and then they actually just they're like, what do I do if I have too many mangoes? And then because these chefs are from like all different geographical, like some of them have families from say Jamaica or a specific town in India or the Scotland or whatever. Like what you do with your mangoes if you're from Scotland is different than what you do with them if you're from Jamaica or if you're from India or from Australia and they all have ideas. I want to know what to do with the crate of mangoes. So yeah.
It sounds like it gives you kind of like ideas of what like you could do if you wanted to, I guess.
I don't follow recipes. I just cook. It's my number one hobby is cooking. So I like to just go in and do stuff. And that also is reflected very strongly in my process of working. Like, I don't want to hear anybody's instructions. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I've absorbed this all my life. I'm just going to leave it to me. I'm going to do this. So. And also not being afraid of making mistakes. Like, I'm never going to kill anybody with my food. So.
I will say that I can't cook, so like I feel like I should start listening to these podcasts a little bit more.
I think I'd get too hungry listening to them. My like excuse to not cooking is that I'm always hungry and I don't want to sit there and wait for the food to cook. Like I'm gonna get frustrated and I'm gonna start eating it like uncooked. So that's always what I tell my mom. So I'm like, no, I'm just too hungry to cook. I just gotta have the food ready for me to go out.
I used to read cookbooks in bed as a child for fun. It was like I would read anything, but I used to love to read cookbooks and I would read them in bed until the pages fell out.
Well, I mean, like you said, you've absorbed it since like a very young age. So
Yeah, it explains it.
Hey, listen, we're all indoor kids here, I was not out. No one was like, pick Maureen first for the kickball team, like that's not a part of it.
Okay, so kind of more on like your writing. Was it hard to go between the past and the present within the Truly Devious books?
No, I love doing that. I love it. I love a cold case. And what's really good about a cold case is that you, like a lot of mysteries now, it's like, and then they got DNA and they solved it. Like that's sort of the, they found a fiber, and that's, but in the past, people could just do whatever. Like when you read about crimes in the 30s, like this is very, it's not based on, but loosely inspired by the Lindbergh kidnapping, which was the kidnapping of the child of Charles Lindbergh, the aviator, and also Nazi, not to be forgotten. That dude was a Nazi. But his child was kidnapped and unfortunately killed. But that crime scene, they just let people go in and do whatever. They let people like put an hour after the crime, they're like, come on in, press, touch everything, sit on it, smoke on it, use it as an ashtray, lick it, touch it, move it. Like people were doing everything, like just tramping all over the place. You like that evidence? Take it home. Like nothing was bagged up, nothing was preserved, and that makes a 1930s case really great because the evidence, like there's no like we're going to find a single piece of evidence with a piece of DNA because nobody took care of that. And weirdly, also the 1930s was it was like an epidemic of kidnapping. People were getting kidnapped all the time. It was a big thing. Like all really rich people were like, "Oh, my family might get kidnapped." It happened a lot. So yeah, so they may have very legitimately said, "Hey, we're just going to pay them because that's what you do now." Because there's people are getting kidnapped left, right, and center. So it was a big thing.
I was about to say, like, okay, the 1930s sounds kind of fine, but now that all the kidnappings were thrown in there, I don't think I'm going back.
There were some bananas kidnappings, like truly nuts kidnappings that would happen. And sometimes they would totally just give the people back. They'd be like, okay, you gave us the money. He's sitting on the trash can. Like they would, not always, but it was nuts. So there was a lot of kidnapping, yeah. And just no evidence. And they would just let anybody. In the Lindbergh kidnapping, this random guy wrote in and was like, why don't you let me negotiate with the killer? He was just some guy. He was literally just some guy. And they said, okay. And they let him do it. Literally some guy. Like nothing to do, not a detective. He's like, I'm a guy. I'd like to get involved. Why don't I talk to the killer? And they said yes. Because the 1930s was nuts and anything could happen.
Okay.
I would not want to be alive in the 1930s.
Yeah, I think we're going to stick to 2022, as messy as and chaotic as that is. So do authors, and I'm assuming the answer is probably no, but I don't know. Do authors get any input on who like narrates their audiobooks? Because I know, like, I've heard a little bit about like they don't get much of a choice with the cover, but do you get a choice with like a narrator?
I would imagine it depends, and that's generally unless you hold on to the audio rights or have some special deal, or like we've had. I know you can put in requests. And I know that, for example, I've done some projects with Cassandra Clare where we've done various collections that are in the Shadowhunter universe. And so they were collections of short stories. So each one of those was narrated by a different actor. And we did get some say in asking for certain people. So it was through us that like one of my stories is narrated by Cecil Boblin, who's from Welcome to Night Vale. And I was like, you should ask Cecil, he'd be great. But you can request actors and things, and whether or not they'll actually listen to you is another thing entirely. But we actually did have some say in it. But generally, I tend to trust them because it is such a sometimes they do send they send audio samples. So they'll say, like, here are the candidates we're looking at, and if you want to listen to the audio samples and let us know what you think.
Do you have any like favorite narrators or a favorite audiobook?
I'm never really sure where I'm at with audiobooks because sometimes they just go on too long. How can I explain it? Like I can read faster than I can hear, and I'm just like, okay, and I get kind of impatient, and it's some sort of a processing thing. There was some narrator that I really loved recently, and I cannot remember who it was, but like if I find somebody I like, I will find every single book that they have narrated, and I will make sure to get it. And there's somebody famous that I was just doing this for, and I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody famous.
Yeah, you were talking about like the processing speed. I feel the same way because honestly, I feel like I can't listen to an audiobook like at one speed. Like it has to be 1.5 or above depending on the audiobook or like the content is.
Yeah, the books there was one I listened to that I think was about 300 days long. It was a nonfiction book about the Watergate trial called Washington Diary. And I listened to the whole thing, and it felt like I was listening to it for years of my life. Years and years of my life were spent listening to this audiobook. But yeah, it's maybe that was a bad choice for an audiobook, but
yeah. I don't think that I'd be able to listen to a history audiobook. I do a lot of nonfiction in the sense of like having the author read their own life story. So it kind of feels like I'm having a memoir.
Yeah.
There you go. Having a conversation with a friend, like they're telling you their problems. I feel like that's one of the only ways I can get through audiobooks. But one audiobook that I really did enjoy was Sadie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that one, just because it had like her point of view, and then we also had like the podcast feature, and so it was really nice and interactive in the fact that there was a different cast. Sometimes you even had like the background noises, which I cannot get over. Like you could hear the coffee shop noises in the background, and I just really enjoyed that and made it easy for me to do it, which is something I don't typically manage to do with audiobooks.
I also can't listen to my own audiobooks. It's painful. It's just not something I can do. So I've never really I've heard little snippets of them, but I've never listened through to them.
She does a pretty good job narrating. I've listened, technically I'm listening to the Hand on the Wall now, but I've listened to all the other 3 that she's done, including The Box in the Woods. So this is my final one in a way.
Yeah, this is Kate Rudd who does them, and yeah, I know she's good. I just can't listen to it because I wrote it. And then I'll be like, why did I do that? Why? Maureen, why'd you do that? And then, okay, yes, no. Like that's what's going on in my head as I'm listening.
Okay, so we did ask our members to take a Truly Devious inspired quiz by Epic Reads. Did you get a chance to take it?
I did.
Okay, so we'll talk about your results in a second. So the quiz is called Could You Get Away with Murder? And I thought it was really fun, albeit I feel like it was rigged because the few people that were able to take it got the answer, they'll never catch you alive. And like, I can understand. Okay, see, I can understand you. I can understand Emily. I would not be able to get away with murder. I feel like I am so dramatic and I'm very much a crime of passion kind of person. And there's no way you can keep a level head in a crime of passion. And then like my anxiety would kick off, like I would get caught. So I don't trust this quiz at all because there's just no way. See, I feel like now that I'm learning all about your addiction with maps, like I feel like you would know the layout of someone's house. You would have it all set up and ready to go. And Emily, I don't know if she wants to talk about her mind.
I tend to like write. I tend to like read and watch a lot of stuff. So like I watch pretty much all of Criminal Minds. I used to watch like The Blacklist. So anything like any crime related show I try to watch. Like I'm currently watching Only Murders in the Building, loving it. And then like obviously like I tend to read a lot of like mysteries and thrillers, and sometimes I get like who's supposed to be like the killer, and sometimes I don't. But I just love reading things like that. But yeah, I do feel like A Crime of Passion would get her caught because like you would just leave something behind in the moment. You know, like it could be in the heat of the moment. You're like, oh, let me get rid of the evidence, but there's always something left behind.
You're probably not even thinking about getting the evidence, but that's why I'm going to go live in the 1930s so I can. That's when I'll get away with it.
You can leave all the evidence you want.
Just like, I did it, love Silvia.
They're like, no, that wasn't Silvia.
It was not her.
Come in, touch it, sit on it.
So just like people right after.
People fully took bits of that room away. Like they kept souvenirs.
Oh my God.
I'm not surprised that people have this like obsession with souvenirs that you shouldn't be keeping.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of disappointed in the 1930 police officers for letting it happen. But if I was a criminal in the 1930s, I'd be very happy.
Well, also there, before TV, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, this is like when they used to go for entertainment and be like, there's a boat that's coming in. Everybody, come on, we're going to all make a whole day of it. We're going to wave at a boat full of people we don't know. Like, there was nothing to do. So what else are you going to do? You're going to go to a crime scene and you're going to like take an ashtray.
Yeah, with the little buds left and everything.
Yeah, just take that home with you. And be like, look what I got. A bunch of crime stuff.
I wonder if anyone has like, if anyone like older has like a whole room of like just
all the things they
stuff.
took.
They're like, oh, I took this from like in April of 1930. I took this one in like May of like 1930. But it's like a whole room of just
dedicated to it.
Stuff. Mm-hmm.
I mean, not for nothing, but when you hear stories of like public executions and things in France and in England, people used to actually take souvenirs from those as well. They're like, I got some blood. And they would get some blood. Really? Like they would get blood on a cloth and be like, I mopped it up and I took it home as a souvenir. I mean, we always think now is the worst, but like, is it?
Yeah, no, I remember. Like I think it was like my Shakespeare class or something, and I don't know why my teacher wanted to deviate from just reading Shakespeare, and so she made us actually look up crimes from his time, and it's just this whole other tangent in this class where we started looking up like the whole like spectacle of murder and like coming over to watch autopsies and all these performances going on, and I was just like, you guys really had nothing to do. But then I think about the kind of stuff that we watch on TV or on TikTok, and it's like, okay, it doesn't surprise me. Humans are just intriguing. But okay, so before we jump to the questions from our audience, our lovely book club peeps, I want to play a quick game of Would You Rather with Maureen and Emely. So
okay,
I hide these questions from Emely. Hopefully she didn't read them. Her face is telling me a lot. Okay, so would you rather attend a murder mystery themed party or visit an elaborate escape room?
See, I like both those things. In fact, just today, I marched proudly in to see my husband. I was like, hey, remember when I got you that escape room for your birthday? And it was designed for 8 people and the 2 of us solved it. And he's like, why are you saying this? I was like, I was just thinking about it because that is the kind of person I am. That being said, I think maybe the murder mystery party, that sounds exciting.
Okay, Emily?
I feel like I would go with the murder mystery theme party only because I haven't done it. I have done an escape room. I think it was like in 2019 for my birthday. My cousin got us some tickets. We ended up getting out under a minute, like literally right before. But it was a great experience. I don't know if I would be able to get out by myself though. I feel like a theme party would be better.
See, like after watching that whole escape room movie series, like I've been scarred for life, but I think I would still do it. I just feel like I'd get really frustrated if I couldn't solve it or someone else couldn't solve it. And like with a murder mystery, like you're in a costume and it's much more interactive, and I could just, be the criminal or something. So I think I would do the murder mystery party. So would you rather plan a murder or commit a crime of passion?
I mean, plan a murder.
Are you trying to get caught?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not supposed to do this at all. So, but I get to plan murders all the time. So it's much better.
So I'm guessing that's your answer too.
Mm-hmm. It might take me a few years. It'll take me a while, but I'll get there.
That's the fun thing. See, murder mystery books have nothing to do with reality. They're not in any way supposed to reflect reality. They are something else entirely. They are not about actual bad things happening. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why people used to read them. Like, they really got popular after World War I because everybody was so shell-shocked and they all had PTSD, and they used to read them to feel better. And then they read them all during, like, that's really where they start to spike up, is whenever people are really stressed out, they're like, oh, there's this thing and it really helps our brains. Like, it's this puzzle where things are resolved. So like, so I have very little interest in actual, I once ran down the street trying to get a veterinary help for a small newt I found on the sidewalk. So I have very little interest in violence. By the way, they don't do that. But I'm not I have no but do I want to design a thing where like a little pod where you can kill off an actor in a room full of very heavy dry ice? Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you rather?
Wait. What would you do? I need to know this now. Like, I don't want to be a crime of passion.
Totally commit a crime of passion. It
right.
feels far more dramatic, and
So I have to come see you in jail.
Yes,
cool.
Visit me.
Cool.
We can have book club meetings in prison. It's okay.
Bring the laptop, like, please. Give me your Wi-Fi password.
So would you rather be framed for murder or be the victim?
Those are bad choices. I mean, I really don't want either, but I guess I'm gonna go with victim if it's well done.
Yours?
Because I would be so mad if someone framed me for murder. I would be so mad.
Honestly, like, because you're looking at what? Life behind bars.
Yes.
Over something
until
you
someone
didn't
solves
do.
it.
Yeah, but what if they don't solve it? Then you're just behind bars forever, as opposed to like just being dead and like, okay, that's the end. I would rather be dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If I'm gonna die, it has to be, like she said, it has to be really well done. It has to be very dramatic, and my name is gonna live forever.
But what if it doesn't? What if it's just like, oh, well, sorry, murder. She died and that's it.
Knowing my luck, I would just be murdered in the most basic way, and it wouldn't even make like the front page. Everyone would just forget me.
I would also be so mad that I lost the game. I would be like, who did this to me?
Well, but you could also spend your years in prison trying to solve the crime. I'm so fascinated with it. But okay, would you rather solve a cold case or solve a high-profile case?
Well, that's a sticky question, isn't it, as to why things are high profile and why they aren't. I'm going with cold case. Get somebody, get justice for somebody, get some satisfaction for somebody, like, get it done. Like, make sure that somebody didn't get away with it. Like, don't forget about people. Cold case.
There's no other answer. It's cold case.
I feel like high profile would be too much pressure for anyone, especially if it's like, this is your first case. No.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to solve it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's a cold case, you can just be like, it was a cold case. I didn't solve it.
Forgot this one.
Did I really? Okay. And then would you rather solve the crime or commit the crime?
Solve it.
I feel like I know what your answer is.
It's solve. I'm a good doer. Whatever that is, do gooder.
I feel like you were gonna say commit the crime.
I'll commit it so you can solve it.
Okay,
Team
we can work
player.
together. All right.
But we'll solve it and we'll just like blame Maureen.
Oh.
I was fired from a bar job for topping up someone's beer legitimately. Like, I legitimately topped up someone's beer because it had a big head on it, and so I finished it off, and they fired me, and I am still thinking about it. That is how I'm like, but I didn't do it. So like, I have such a limited threshold for like, I didn't do.
Yeah, she would come and find you.
I'm not framing her. I'm deleting this video right now. Okay, so we are gonna.
All right, so now we're opening the floor to our members. We're gonna start off with our friend Sasha. So if you can go ahead and open your mic, you can actually go ahead and ask your question.
It should let you unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My question is, did you find it challenging writing a murder mystery, specifically Truly Devious?
Yes, I found it challenging because of the structure I gave myself, which was these two big things, this 1930 case and a present day case that I was going to bring together. And so I had all the components of the hand on the wall, but figuring out how to stretch this and build it and legitimately solve it in sections. Also, I had to tell it over 3 books because it was a lot. I think it would have, like, either I would have had to cut it down or it would have been like this big, and nobody wants to read a murder mystery this big. So yes, but it was also a lot of fun. And again, I got to look into a lot of things like how much carbon dioxide is on a submarine. I don't know the answer, but it's a bunch apparently. It's a bunch.
Genesis. Let's see.
I don't think she was able to make it. So do you want to go ahead and ask her?
Sidebar: people on submarines don't bathe.
All right, so Genesis couldn't.
They never bathe. You get on a submarine and there's not enough water, so they basically are just like, they get like to wipe their faces, but like they don't shower or anything.
I can see Bianca like antibacterial wipes are pretty good. Like I remember for my surgery, I had to shower with some kind of like weird antibacterial soap and then use the wipes, and then that was the day before, and then the day of I had to like wipe down again, and my skin was so itchy just from how much it like scrubbed down.
Yeah,
but I think I'd much rather take a shower than not shower in a submarine.
Yeah, apparently there's a whole thing of when they get to land, everyone's so stinky that they have to go into like a special room and kind of like, you take off everything and you just kind of leave it in a room, and then you shower, and then like it has to be kind of removed, and it's a whole thing where I was like, I didn't know. There's so many other terrible reasons about being in a submarine. The idea of being under the sea for 3 months, like with no light, is already terrible. But I'm like, oh, you also don't shower? That's great. That's just so good.
So gross and miserable. Like, no.
And you would think that they will have like they would have something that would at least take the water outside and like recycle or something. Like,
I don't know that they. So do they not flush the toilet?
There's like a system for that, but there's not and they have to have, mostly their water has to be for drinking, so there's not enough to run showers or anything like that. So they get like a little tiny bit, but they don't get much, so they're just all really like hairy. It's like gross, and you basically have to burn their clothes. Like, it sounds so awful.
I'm really glad that was not a career choice I ever wanted, because no. Okay, so Genesis wasn't able to make it. She's on a road trip, so.
But she did want to know, how long did it take you to write Truly Devious, and are there any characters in the series you didn't like? And I think I know why she asked that.
So setting up the initial story. So there was each of the books takes about a year. There was some additional time on that one where I was basically setting everything up. and building all the structures that would be used later. So I was building a set basically on like I was building a detective. I built a detective and then I built a place for her to be a detective in. So that book probably took 1.5 to 2 years to kind of get it all started. And then each one after that. And because the ones after that are all separate standalone. Like Nine Liars is a standalone and they're all going to be standalone. So about a year each. Also because that's when they make me do it in. So they take it from you at a certain point where they're like, you have to give it to us. And I'm like, don't wanna. And then they say you have to.
Were there any characters that you didn't like?
I wouldn't say I don't like them because I'm in charge of them, so I can't hate them. But there are certainly people I'm taking certain things out on. I went to theater school as well. I spent a lot of time around actors.
I mean, that's probably like it.
Doesn't mean I don't like them. I gotta love them all. But I mean, I marked him for death, so you know.
I mean, you could have killed him a little bit more nicely, but you spent months researching dry ice. So
yeah, I killed him dead.
All right, Bianca has a few questions.
We cannot hear you.
Her mic is open though.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. No, we still can't hear you.
Do you want to sign out and then sign back in, and we'll try someone else while you're to give you a shot? Okay. All right.
All right. So Christine could not make it either.
She's celebrating her friend's dirty 30.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but
she's out living life.
Send a question. She wanted to know, how do you picture Stevie appearance-wise?
Stevie is slightly on the shorter side. She has chopped up kind of a bleach blonde hair that she doesn't take very good care of. She doesn't know anything about clothes. She kind of forgets she has a body a bunch, so she doesn't know about makeup or clothes and is generally mystified by people who do. She is kind of like one of those people that thinks that her body is something to carry her head from room to room, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that she is largely unaware of her own physical self, but she does wear a lot of black because she thinks it all matches, even though some black gets washed out and doesn't, you know. So it's a lot of like, I have both kinds of t-shirts, the black ones and the sort of off-white ones, but she does have that one coat.
Yeah, we did have a question for the first book in our meeting about like
for Dr. Shade Magic
appearance. Well, yeah, that one too about coats. No, so with Truly Devious, we did ask about like appearance because she does kind of have that moment where she starts reflecting on what attractive is, and like for the first time ever, she's kind of wondering what she looks like, which I found interesting because she is really observant of others. She notices what they're wearing, she notices their mannerisms, and when she looks at the detective, she's like, this is how I'm supposed to present myself. But it's interesting that she doesn't present herself in that way just yet. Like she's very observant of like, this is how I'm gonna dress, this is how I'm gonna stand, but she hasn't started mimicking that just yet. I mean, I don't know if eventually she's gonna don a full-on, you know.
That comes from a lot of my own wonder about people that seem to have an innate knowledge of clothes and makeup and what you're supposed to do. I'm always like, did you always know? Like, is there a gene or something that it's like how I also don't understand sports. I'm like, it's just, I'm a lot like a dog being shown a card trick when I see a lot of things. I'm like, makeup? ? So her own confusion is reflected, you know, my confusion is also reflected in her confusion.
It's okay. I'm very confused about makeup too. I didn't really learn much until this year because my friend got married. And so like I had to learn how to like set the foundation and everything and like a look that would look natural for the wedding. It came out pretty good, but like I haven't done it since, so I don't remember anything.
Yeah, she kept sending me like pictures. She's like, "What about this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, dude. Like, I
Seems
guess."
fine.
Like, you look great. Okay.
I will say though that I love Stevie's iconic red vinyl coat. I feel like that is like a statement piece, and it's just like every time I imagine her, I just imagine her in that coat. I wish I had like one like that.
Emily has a thing for coats for sure.
And she got it for free. Like she found it.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't cost anything, which is going to be a big part of the equation because she doesn't have any money to spend on clothes. But she's like, I found this thing. It seems cool.
Just gonna wear it.
Yeah.
Bianca, do you want to try again?
No. Okay. Do you want us to read it? Okay. Go ahead and.
All right. So Bianca wants to know. Well, she says, I honestly love how you've written each character. They all have their own personality, and I really feel like they come to life. Janelle in particular is truly the friend we all need, so brilliant, so cute, and the most supportive person to have in your corner. But I also love the eye roll and laugh. I also love to eye roll and laugh at Ellie. Not at all because I was her as a teen. Nope, not at all for that reason. Which character did you have the most fun writing in this book?
Well, it's probably not going to be that much of a surprise that it's Nate, the writer who is always avoiding writing, is super nervous about anybody asking him about it. I kind of poured into him a lot of my actual lived experience with all writers, which is that we are all acting like we're on the run from like someone's trying to kill us and we're always on the run. Like, what are you working on? What do you do? Why are you asking me that? I don't know. Nothing. Shut up. No, you like, and that he kind of like, to compliment him is so horrifying to him. And he likes people, but he doesn't really want anybody to get like, he likes people, but he likes to look at them through a crack in the door. So yes.
I honestly love Nate. I feel like he's like one of the most relatable characters. Like if he were real, we would be friends.
Exactly. I would want to be friends with Nate.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the only one that isn't. And like, I love that Bianca brought up Ellie because she always talks about who she was as a teenager, and I wish your mic was working. She just keeps telling us how much of a snob she was as a high schooler, and then she was like, Twilight. And now this girl's got like a little mug with Twilight and she's like obsessed with it. It's like, and it's just so funny when she talks about how much of a snob she was. And I'm like, you're like one of the coolest people I know. I kind of want to like meet younger Bianca. But if she was anything like Ellie, then dang,
she said no.
you were just questionable in so many ways.
Vampire baseball, man. Vampire baseball forever.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a glow up and you became, I guess, cool then, Bianca. But all right, I did just drop an image on the chat. I'm not sure if everyone has access to the chat, but that is Bianca's second question. We kind of had everyone write down their questions beforehand to think about them. And she threw in this funny picture from
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so her question is this. When you were writing this book, did you look like the whiteboard meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I imagine writers look like this when writing out characters, plots, backstories, and building the world. Do you set up some sort of writer's board like Stevie's evidence board, or is your writing more freeform than that?
You did show us of your art, so is that what it looks like?
Well, okay. Remember that I'm in the middle of cleaning my office, and so there's a lot of stuff all around. So I can just lift you up. Over here, see that like big green thing? That's a board that I keep notes on. The cards are flipped, but there is, let me see how close I can get. I can probably, here. Do I go up or down? There we go. You might be able to see that it's got notes on it. There's a whiteboard that I keep as a Kanban board over there. There's a dog. She's sleeping over there. Like there's like a whole bunch of research books and things there. there's like the 29 different series of notes and things, and my collection of 20,000 different planners. And basically, yes, like I got notebooks for my notebooks. I'm notebook obsessed. It's a sickness. It's a genuine illness that I need medicine for. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, when you mentioned being, obsessed with notebooks, Emely has like a collection of notebooks. And so we're not in her room right now, we're at her friend's place, but she has this like wall, she calls her murder wall, and there's like sticky notes on there with like, well, I call it a murder wall. She's planning a totally non-murdery story at this point. Well, there is murder, but it's not a murder mystery, but there is a wall, and I'm just like, this looks like a murder wall. You look like a crazy person, which is why I know she's gonna do the planned murder, and I'm just going to be.
I haven't
Here's
I did bring stuff, but I haven't done that yet.
There's the dedicated Post-it drawer for all the different types of Post-its but then of course I've just bought a new size of Post-it that I'm so excited about. So these are even better. They're making a new size of Post-it that's even better. It's in between.
Good.
I mean, look how beautiful it is.
I saw on TikTok these like clear looking ones, and it's like they're like transparent, but I cannot find them anywhere. It's like I saw them and I don't. Amazon. Okay, thank you.
But there's also these new highlighted ones. I don't know if anyone's seen them, but they're like little strips of highlighted sticky notes. So like when you press it down on the page, it looks like you highlighted it. And I was like, what is all this?
Does anyone want a fistful of washi tape? I mean, come on.
Okay. Ignore
So
the background noise. Okay, so we are on. Katie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question? Sorry for the background noises. I don't know what that is. I think it's a celebration.
Hi. Well, it is very, very nice to meet you, Maureen. So in the beginning, we were talking about like podcasts and true crime. Like, are you into like murder mystery makeup, like Bailey Sarian or other stuff like that?
Murder mystery makeup?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's this whole like big thing on YouTube where people are just doing their makeup while they're talking true crime.
I didn't know.
It's awesome. The one I'm listening to right now is Bailey Sarian.
I mean, probably the reason I don't know is that I'm not watching anything with makeup on. But now that I know that that's part of it, I'll be like, okay.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Like, it's probably like a really good way to learn makeup, but I feel like I tried listening to it, but then I got so absorbed in the story. But you're also kind of like intrigued by what they're doing with their face. But Katie, does she like, what I'm doing is like, does she explain what she's doing with her face, or she just does her makeup while she's talking?
She mostly just talks about the crimes and stuff. Like she has a whole playlist on YouTube. It's crazy.
If you can, could you drop? Are you on your phone right now or? iPad. Well, later on, just put it in the chat, and hopefully we can. Anyone who hasn't watched it can watch it. Maureen, if you're ever interested in watching people do their makeup and talk about death.
I mean, that's about the only way it's going to happen.
All right, and then we can learn these tips. Okay, Molly was here, but she is, I mean, at this point, it is probably 2 a.m. She's in the UK.
She's 6 hours ahead.
So she did have to go to bed. She tried to hang in there, but she does have 2 questions for you.
All right, so the first one is, do you believe in reading slumps, and how would you get rid of one yourself? Like, is there a go-to genre?
Oh, reading slump? Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, during the beginning of COVID, I couldn't really concentrate I couldn't finish a book for a long time. It was just endless doom scrolling. I'm just doom scrolling. That's a little song I wrote called Doom Scrolling. Yeah, it took a while to get back. And it doesn't matter what it can be the most random thing. It doesn't matter, like, whatever you feel like reading is good. And if you've read it again, like sometimes I go back and I pick up something I've read like thousands of times and I'm like, I just want to read this right now. I'm going to just I tend to carry books around the house. And so you'll just see them left in various places, like little end tables and stuff. Like, what was Maureen doing? She was just carrying it around the house. So.
Her second question is, how do you deal with writer's block?
Well, you don't have, I mean, it happens, and it just means that you're not sure what to do. That's generally all it is like, I don't know. It's a big case of, I don't know. So that's okay. Like, you can sideways your ways through it. You can, you just deal with it any way you have to. It's fear, it's confusion, it's decision fatigue, it's just uncertainty. Like I just literally don't know what happens, or I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong. So I write out of order. I've never written a book in order, which is why it's great to have Scrivener as a program, which is the writing program I use, because you can write out of order, which is what I've always done, except in the past, I just had to keep track of, 50 different files of where I'd written a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So if something isn't moving here, I go over and I work on something here.
I will say that I love Scrivener too. I think I bought it like 2 years ago because I hate beginnings. Like there's this one story that I keep writing, and I can't write the beginning of it. However, I can write things in the middle. I can write like action scenes, but for some reason, the beginning is the one thing that just always gets me like tripping.
And maybe you find that actually your beginning is something you wrote in the middle, and you can move things so easily and actually just got to be like, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this. Good.
All right. Our next question is also about writing. This one comes from Timothy. So let's see.
He should be.
Where do we go? You can open your mic, I think.
Yeah, it should.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Maureen. It's so nice to meet you. My question was, like you said, in regards to writing. You kind of touched on it earlier, but is there any secrets to like not hating everything that you write as a whole? And then also like feeling comfortable with sharing what you've written with others, because that is, so far, I'm not going to answer to those.
Right. Yeah, it's the way I kind of describe it is, it's sort of like I was a barista way back, like before barista had a name. And I poured so much hot coffee on my hands that, because you're pouring coffee all the time, and after a while people are like, oh my God, are you burned? I'm like, I don't even feel it anymore. Like, I don't even, it's fine. My hands are always covered in boiling hot coffee. And it's like exposure therapy a little bit. That feeling of when you've written so much stuff, because when you're in the process of writing anything, you are by definition writing something poorly. To write something means you must first write it poorly. It is definitionally part of the task. When you draft, you're drafting. It's bad. Doesn't matter. And that's one part of that answer, is like, you're working with your medium. You're like this shaping the thing. And the second is, the first couple times you go up in front of people, I guess it's sort of like, so I also went to theater school. I was a dramaturg. And there's this whole idea of showtime, like just the idea of getting up in front of people, of doing the thing, of being judged. The first couple times it's so nerve-wracking, but after a while you're like, it's just part of it. Like, some performers never lose their nerve, always have nerves, and they barf before every show, and some are just like, hey, it's an audience, whatever. Now I'm used to having people read and respond, and it's I think it is exposure therapy. I think it is time. I think it is experience. Because the first couple times you do it, it's always like, and then you're like, oh, people are all going to say different things. Because that's the, like, when you get, I have a MFA. And then I think that the major lesson of an MFA can be summed up as different people say different things about your work. What happens is inevitably the same. Like, you write a piece and you hand it out to 10 people, and all 10 people will come back and say something different. I love your piece, except for the mom. I love your piece. You have to have more of the mom. I love your piece. There was a mom. Why don't you make the mom a truck? It's like you're going to get all these different opinions, and you have to figure out who to listen to. And that's really what it's about, is learning who to listen to. And I said this at the end to my thesis instructor. I'm like, is it about learning how to listen to? And he's like, bingo, now you get to graduate. And I was like, yay, thanks. And I don't know if any of these are answers, but I think that no audience, no reader is going to be the making or the end of you. They won't hurt you. It's natural to be nervous. It's natural to feel like you're not good, or that it's not good, because you're probably not done. Or maybe you are done, but you're just not sure. Or maybe they do say something weird and the next person loves it. Like, I kind of take love and hate with the same token. I'm like, anybody can think anything they want about it, and I'm fine with anybody's response. I'm not even going to say that the nice ones are, because I'm also awkward about nice stuff. I'm like, thank you. I'm so worthless. And like, I turned into a little shrimp, like, I'm so wretched. At the same time, someone's like, I hate you. I'm almost like, okay, great. Because I'm from Philadelphia and that feels better to me. But I think just, it's natural. All, like, both those things are natural and normal. And like, you just kind of have to you get out there and you do it a couple times, and you start to build up a little bit of patina, like the burns on the hands. You don't feel them as much. You always feel it, but you're like, okay, it's all just information. Was that an answer, or was that just me talking?
Timothy?
Sounded good to me.
I will say that I love what you just said, because we were lucky enough to, actually, we met in a writing class. That's how we met in college. We were lucky enough to be part of this professor who like loved to do these workshops. And he was always like, listen, like, everyone's going to tell you something different. And like, what you know is going to work for you. But, at the end of the day, the story is always going to be like what you want it to be, not what like some other person wants it to be, or what they wish it could be. Like, this is for you.
Right. That was some really fun prompts too. Mm-hmm. Like, he would always just be like, it was like a one sentence and that was the prompt. But I did think it was funny that he had a thing against redheads, and Emely was always trying to write redheads in her story. Like, he didn't have a thing against them, but he was just like, no redheads. Because I feel like everyone's trying to write about redheads, Emely. I feel like every protagonist that Emely writes about is like a redhead. So it was just so funny that was his comment. Like, no redheads.
They found your thing. He is like, I see what you're doing here.
So you got to give them another different kind of hair. They're rare. Every single one of your protagonists cannot be a redhead.
But they were not. They were not all redheads. But I will say that he really liked to like make you think outside the box, because he always was like, okay, I'm gonna need you guys to like write a scene, but this has to happen. Like, there has to be a power shift in like 3 different people in like a certain amount of pages. So he was always like pushing us to do something different than we were always used to.
Yeah, and I think that was most writing I got to do creatively, because I had been in a slump for years, like a writing slump for years. It was just academic, and he was the one that like really brought the creativity back. So that was really nice. And Timothy, this question is actually really great, because we put on our stories, we asked other people to ask us questions, and at Delaney_and24, she actually asked us about, dealing with these expectations. So you're not the only one that wanted an answer. I think that we all really appreciated having that answer.
I do have another question, sort of related to Truly Devious. Out of all the characters, who do you see yourself most reflected in?
Probably Stevie. I mean, a lot of her, I mean, not the whole I'm brilliant at crime solving, but like a lot of just her behaviors and interests come from a very real place of me loving mysteries and being a certain type of person. And just her awkwardness and badness at being, like, sometimes she's not a very good friend because she doesn't know what to do, like, or she's just bad at being around, like, she's like, I don't really know how to do, like, she makes a lot of mistakes in terms of dealing with other people because she's kind of in her own head. So, you know, I feel that.
Do you want to do this one?
Yes.
All right, so this is actually a question from someone on Instagram from @dbdeb. She actually asked, have you thought of writing a series with Stevie as an adult?
No, but it's not out of the question. Because certainly so there will be right now 2 more Stevie books after Nine Liars.
Ooh, okay.
So I don't know if that's public, not, but there will be 2 more after Nine Liars. And what's that?
We can edit it out. It's okay.
No, it's fine. Like, I think it's perfectly. It's not like state secrets or anything. It's not like.
It's not a 1937 scene when we're just taking this information from you.
You could just go in and touch it and like put out your cigarette on it and no one cares. It's like, whatever. And I have wondered, like, where does she end up? You know, where does she go? Because she's very concerned about her future. And that certainly comes up a lot in Nine Liars, that she's like, I don't really know what happens to me post. I didn't really think past Ellingham, so I don't really know what happens to me next. So it's a good question. And the answer is, I don't know. I like making detectives, though. Like, I will say that. Like I like it. I don't like just like mystery stories. I like a detective story. I like me a detective. I've always been I always had my detectives. And yes.
And I think that kind of comes up a little in the Box in the Woods too, with like certain topics that she talks with. I won't say who because they haven't read that far, but you know, certain topics that she talks with someone very important to her towards the book. So I love that. The spoilers.
Okay.
No, see, I said no spoilers.
I'm trying not to commit a crime of passion on camera.
All right. Pipster Hipster asked, what would Stevie Bell have on her playlist?
Well, she brings up playlists a bunch because she listens to things that relate to the thing that she is looking into because it reflects a rhythm or a place at a time. So I will say that because Nine Liars features a crime that takes place in England in 1995, it is absolutely dripping with Britpop. So it's dripping with playlists. I think she listens to a lot of podcasts. And I think her music knowledge is sort of limited to what she's doing. I think she may not be much of a music listener in terms of what she natively listens to. Like, I think she probably listens to what is in the room with someone else, that someone else is playing. On this, she and I would differ quite a lot.
Okay, so we did have a manager-in-chief. She asked, do you have any favorite YA mystery books?
There weren't any for a while. And now they're starting to appear, which I'm excited about. So Jen Lynn Barnes has written the Inheritance Games, one of my absolute favorite books growing up is The Westing Game. Like, I cannot express how much I love The Westing Game. It's middle grade. And it's written in 1978 and it holds up. Like, most of the time when you're going to read a middle grade, like a YA or middle grade book from 1978, you think that you're going to be like, oh, what's going to be in there? And it holds up a lot better than you might like. That to me was the beginning of so much of I don't know, it's just, I have such strong feelings about it. And the Inheritance Games gives me strong feelings like the Weston game. It has that kind of feel to it. Karen McManus obviously writes quite a number of YA mysteries. God, I'm blanking on so many because my brain is all full today. But they're starting to obviously like Sadie or Courtney, various things that Courtney has written. But yeah, they're starting to appear, which makes me happy because there weren't really. It was just a kind of a. I feel like it was a little bit of a void that people were not. And I would say that Emily E. Lockhart's books are also like We Were Liars and Family of Liars are both like especially I think Family of Liars is a mystery. They both are. But yeah.
Have you read The Agathas by Kathleen Gaskell and Liz Lawson?
I haven't. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. I think it came in while I was working on something and I didn't have time to read it because I came in for like a blurb request while something crazy was going on, and so I couldn't read it. That's the good thing about being an author is that people send you lots of stuff and say, "Well, you read this and for a quote," and so you get to read. Like Ace of Spades, and obviously, and God, there've been a bunch just really in the last year or so. And I'm just blanking, but there have been a bunch in the last year.
There really have, because I feel like my TBR just keeps growing every time. I'm like, let me add this one, let me add this one.
Yeah, it really spiked in the last year or so, which made me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was listening to The Vanishing Stair on the drive over here. This is our last week with it, actually, and I should be finishing it soon. I probably shouldn't be saying that in front of my book club people. I'm totally done with questions coming soon.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm done.
Emily's done. She was being productive. So she does talk about Agatha Christie, and I was just curious what your favorite Agatha Christie novel is.
When I was a kid, I was an obsessive Agatha Christie reader as well. Like my idea of a great summer day was reading 2 Agatha Christie novels. I think the best one is And Then There Were None. But that being said, I was hugely into Hercule Poirot, like hugely. He was my first fictional crush, and he is a elderly Belgian man. So like this is, so The Mysterious Affair at Styles, I had a lot of affection for. I think Crooked House is actually one of her best. Crooked House is great. And what else? Ooh. Okay.
Sorry, I turned off our camera.
Yeah, I think in recent years, I would say that. And Then There Were None. It's just a great puzzle. It's just a perfect puzzle. It can't be, but so many Hercule Poirots, and I'd say Crooked House. I've also just sat through the recent Death on the Nile. I mean, so I have real complicated feelings about this series of adaptations. Action Poirot, various. They did better than I thought, but yeah. There's some big questions though about I would say casting in that one, but yeah. Was that the answer? I think that was the answer.
That was the answer. And I think Stevie, it's And Then They Were None that she's actually rereading for like comfort. So that is a good choice. Okay. I mean, not that there is a right answer. So our final question is, what unsolved mystery would you like the answer to? What cold case is it that you're going to crack? At least an answer.
Whenever I hear about any of them, I get annoyed that anything is unsolved. It just, it's truly hard to say. I mean, it's frustrating that so many cases are unsolved for so many different reasons. It's just that some are more famous than others, and some are just weirder than others. I mean, for example, everyone talks about Zodiac because it's weird. It's weird. And it's very public, and it's very like, and here's a code that I wrote that you have to publish in the newspaper. That's weird. And it's very theatrical. And that's why it's interesting, is like, what is this weirdo doing? But in the end, all these people are jerks. Like, that's the thing, is that they're all just jerks. And they've hurt people. So in reality, it's like, but then, you know, but at the same time, it's like, but who did it? You know, like, that's the thing. It's that thing in all of us. It's like, okay, but here's who did it. So I don't know. Like, there's so many things that there aren't answers to, and I don't like it one bit.
I feel like that's always like a plaguing question in the back of your mind. And so,
I mean,
the end of time.
I think anything that doesn't have an answer, right? Like, we're just all naturally curious people, and then we're just kind of like, things just nag at us in the back of our heads.
And when people get really obsessed with cold cases, if you've ever watched any of the documentaries about people that get really obsessed with cold cases, they go down these deep rabbit holes. And there's a new Netflix series about D.B. Cooper that, if you haven't seen it, it's great, because it's really about the people that become obsessed about trying to figure out who D.B. Cooper is. And they're all like, they all go full in. They're like trying to, and there are thousands of suspects, and everyone's like, I've solved it. It was my uncle. And it's really says something about the people trying to solve it more than the actual case, which is like, we're probably never going to figure it out. But like, all these people spend all of their time trying to figure it out. So.
Yeah, because we actually did have that question of whether or not we would be getting more CB novels. And I was like, I really want to know.
Yes,
and you answered that without us even having to prompt you.
Work has already started on book 6. So
6. Awesome.
I'm excited.
And everyone's celebrating in the background. Okay, but don't leave, because we are taking a picture at the end.
So first of all, thank you, Maureen, for joining us, taking time out of your day. We loved having you. Well, yes, night. It is dark outside. We can't see. But we loved having you here. We loved talking to you, asking you questions, hearing you. And I hope all of you also enjoyed it. And we want to thank all of you, all of our book club members as well, for joining us. You make everything about book club so much better, honestly.
Yeah, and we honestly appreciate the fact that, like, Maureen, you just kind of offered on a post, and like, that is so rare, and like, it's just so sweet, like, you to just be like, hey, I want to talk to your book club. And like, I remember
reading.
And like, I was telling Bianca, and she was like, like, and we kind of kept it a secret from everyone till the very end. We were just like, hey, give us your like availabilities. And everyone was kind of like, okay. And Jason, I just remember him going, what is this about? He was just like,
what is this, a shakedown? What are you doing?
But, you know, it's so nice that we were able
Timothy
to put this
got
together.
it before I sent it.
He figured it out?
Yeah.
Dang, Timothy. We're going to make you solve these cold cases, because you clearly. Okay. And so throughout the conversation, we did have most of the questions answered from people that submitted it, but I'm just going to kind of shout out their names. It was at Cherry Fairy, at Abby Vioch, at Amanda Curry, at Isabella Santana, at Amanda in Chief, which I did mention her, at Blazing Modesty, at Rage 1991. Emily did mention at Debbie Deb, at Pipster Hipster, at Kit the Youngest, at Skyberry 88, and My Sassy Starfish, and at Miranda ALW. And we're gonna, you know, feature their little questions. Most of them got answered, so thank you for that. But okay. Just really quick closing remarks. So once again, we are the Queens of the Reads. You can find us on Instagram as Paola Loves Books Texas and Silvia and Books. Use our hashtag Queens of the Reads to look up all our book club photos. We have everyone like post photos every once in a while with their books or just whatever it is that they want to share about book club using that hashtag. Our next trilogy is Kirsten White's Camelot Rising. You can start signing up for it on September 25th, and we start on October 2nd. You can message either one of us on Instagram, visit our website for more info, and we'll be dropping the link in the little edit once we edit the video. I do want to thank Oscar from the Unqualified Gurus podcast. He's going to be editing this video so that it can be posted on the internet, because again, I'm obviously not a tech person. But all right, everyone, Emily's going to take a quick screenshot. Thank you again, Maureen. If you guys want to unmute yourselves and make comments, you guys are welcome to. And then, yes, let's all take a picture with our, oh, let me close this.
I'm putting in my posters.
All right, let's see if Jason's able to, okay, his camera should be popping up soon.
Hold on, I have to get closer.
Yeah, I've been trying to push you closer.
One of those, guys.
All
One
right.
of those.
So thank you again, Maureen. I don't know if you guys
Thank you, guys.
Bianca's just, shake your hands.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
I hope they don't come at ungodly hours of the night.
Yeah. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.